This is a beginner guide for Protection Paladin in patch 11.0.5, and it's going to be very, very beginner friendly. Whether you've tanked before, whether you've even played WoW before, etc., I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. So there's a few specific things we need to know about Paladin before we get started. And specifically, Protection Paladin. We have a few extra stats on our bar here. So if you are a beginner or even intermediate player, you always want to prioritize getting higher eye level of gear, so item level of gear, before looking at the secondary stats. And what I always say is, if you are worrying about which secondary stats you should be using, then you should be simulating your character. And if you don't know what that means, then you're probably too much of a beginner for it to matter, which is a good thing in my opinion. So higher eye level gives us more strength, stamina, and armor, reducing damage and increasing health. We've then got critical strike, which actually means we can do extra damage, but as a tank, it also increases our parry chance, basically kind of meaning dodge. Haste speeds up our attack and casting speed, to put it simply at least. Mastery. Now, this is different for every spec. For Protection Paladins, it's Divine Bulwark. Increases your chance to block melee attacks by X amount. While inside your Consecration, which is this spell, so we can put this like holy light on the floor. That's our consecration. We're consecrating the ground beneath us, basically. So while inside this consecration, while we're standing in it, your damage taken is reduced, and you have a chance equal to your block chance to reduce damage taken from harmful periodic effects as well. It also increases how much damage we do. So mastery is a really awesome stat there. Versatility increases damage and healing done, but reduces how much damage we take. So that's a really great versatile stat. And then we've got avoidance, dodge, and parry, which will do similar things here. And as a Protection Paladin, we do want to use a one-handed weapon and a shield. Another thing to note is that some of our abilities are going to actually generate and then also spend something called Holy Power. So you'll see that we have a mana bar as a Protection Paladin, but you don't really need to worry about this too much. We literally don't really care about it. But what we do have, if I use this spell here, as you can see, I've got 1 bar, 2 bar, and this will go up to 5. This is Holy Power. And I'm going to explain when we're actually generating and spending our Holy Power when we go through the rotation a bit more. So for both single target and multi-target, which is basically Raid or Mythic Plus, we are going to be going with Lightsmith for both of the rotations in this video. And they are very, very similar rotations as well. So what we've got here is we're starting off with a single target rotation, and on the left here is our highest priority spell, and on the right is our lowest priority. So on the left-hand side, we have Avenging Wrath. Call upon the light to become an avatar of retribution, causing judgment to generate 1 additional holy power. So that is this spell here. It usually generates 1 holy power. When we use Avenging Wrath inside that cooldown window, it will actually generate 2 holy power rather than 1. Allowing Hammer of Wrath to be used on any target, increasing damage, healing, and critical strike chance by 20% for 25 seconds. And Hammer of Wrath is this spell here, so it says you can use it on any target, again, when you're in your Avenging Wrath window. Usually, you could basically only use this when enemies have less than 20% health. So when I use Avenging Wrath, you can now see I can use it whenever the hell I like. So use Avenging Wrath on cooldown. The next spell is quite interesting. This is Holy Bulwark, and this is actually from our hero talent as a Lightsmith. So I'm just going to read this out, okay? Holy Armaments on a 1-minute recharge. So, will the light to coalesce and become manifest as a holy armament wielded by your friendly target. Holy Bulwark. While wielding a Holy Bulwark, you gain an Absorb Shield for 15% of your max health, and an additional amount every few seconds. When you then use the Holy Bulwark, because remember this spell has 2 charges, it will swap into a Sacred Weapon instead. Your spells and abilities have a chance to deal additional holy damage to nearby targets. The effect is increased when Sacred Weapon strikes a single target and reduced above 5. So basically, I only want you to use this spell as a priority here if it is a sacred weapon, so not a bulwark, but a weapon, and outside of your Avenging Wrath window. Okay, so use Avenging Wrath on cooldown. The number 2 priority is to use your sacred weapon, so this one here, but only outside of your Avenging Wrath window. Okay, so once this cooldown ends, if you have your sacred weapon available to use that. If not, move on to the next one, which is going to be our Bastion of Light. Your next 5 casts of Judgment generate 2 additional holy power. And again, that's this spell here. So we're just going to use that. The next thing, put down your consecration, especially if you're not using in it. If you're not standing in it. So always make sure you're standing in your consecration. Let's just recap on that. We're going to be doing damage to anyone in it. And also, as well, if we look at our mastery again, while inside your consecration, your damage taken is reduced. So we always want to be standing in this consecration, okay? Always have that down and standing in it. So we've spoken a lot about generating all this holy power and generating extra with this judgment spell over here. But now let's look at how we're spending our holy power. That's the next spell, Shield of the Righteous. Slams enemies in front of you with your shield, causing holy damage and increasing your armor. It also increases your strength and stamina by 2% for 10 seconds, and that can stack up to 3 times. You want to use this when you have 3 to 5 holy power. So you can see I've got 3 here. It costs 3 holy power, so I'm going to use it. Now, we don't want to ever cap out on holy power. You can see we have 5 available. You don't want to cap out because obviously any more you're generating would be wasted. So always try and use your Shield of the Righteous to make sure you are at 3 or below, I would say. 3, 4 or below. You don't want to get to 5 and then go to 6 because the 6 will just be wasted. So we can use that to spend our holy power. Then we're going to use Hammer of Wrath whenever we can. This will either be when the enemy has less than 20% health, or it will be during something like Avenging Wrath because it allows us to. After that, we're going to use Judgment on cooldown. Remember, this is going to generate holy power. It basically does damage and causes the enemy to take more damage from our next holy power ability. So if I use Judgment, my next Shield of the Righteous will then do more damage, for example. After that, we can use Divine Toll on cooldown. This is going to generate 1 holy power per target hit and instantly casts Avenger's Shield on up to 5 nearby targets. Avenger's Shield is something we're going to be using more in Mythic Plus, and that is this spell here. Basically, it hurls our shield at the target, dealing damage, interrupting and silencing them, and then jumping to 2 additional nearby enemies. It will also shield us for some of the damage dealt. So Divine Toll will cast that on any nearby enemies. You want to use Divine Toll on cooldown, and only if we have 4 or less holy power. Again, it's going to generate 1 holy power per target hit. So in a single target environment, obviously that's only 1 target, and therefore it's only going to generate 1 holy power. So we want to make sure we only use this at 4 or below. And because we're using Shield of the Righteous to spend our holy power, that shouldn't be an issue. Then we're going to use Holy Bulwark if we have 2 charges of it. So you can see I've got my weapon here. We're going to use Holy Bulwark here. And if you're saying, well, I've got to here and it's a weapon, it wouldn't be because you're using the weapon as a priority up here, and then you'd use the Bulwark down here. So we'll go through the rotation properly in a minute. Then we have Hammer of the Righteous. Use this on cooldown. It hammers the current target for damage. While you're standing in your consecration, it also causes a wave of light that hits other targets for holy damage too. And this also generates a holy power. And then lastly, if you need to, you can actually spend holy power on Word of Glory. This is just a healing spell. Rather than using Shield of the Righteous, if you're low on health, you can use Word of Glory to spend holy power instead. Let's go through it one more time. Avenging Wrath on cooldown. Sacred Weapon, but not in our Avenging Wrath window. Bastion of Light on cooldown. Always standing your consecration. Use Shield of the Righteous at 3 or above holy power. Use Hammer of Wrath whenever you can. Use Judgment on cooldown. Use Divine Toll on cooldown when you're at 4 or lower holy power. Use Divine Bulwark if you have 2 charges here. Use Hammer of the Righteous on cooldown. And use Word of Glory if you need it for the extra health. So that's just putting it all together then. Okay, Avenging Wrath. Can't use it. We're outside of our Avenging Wrath window, so we're going to use our Sacred Weapon. Bastion Light is already on cooldown. Let's make sure we're standing in our consecration. Let's spend our holy power. Can't use Hammer of Wrath. Okay, we're going to use our Judgment to generate more holy power. Now we can go back up and use our Shield of the Righteous using Judgment again. Divine Toll's on cooldown. Oh, and now we can use our Judgment again. Amazing. We need to get back in our Consecration because you could see it's come back off. Let's use our Shield of the Righteous again. Okay, we can use our Judgment again. Let's use our Hammer of the Righteous. We're not using Divine Bulwark because we only want to use it when we've got 2 charges available of it. Back up to use Judgment again. Shield of the Righteous. Consecration needs putting back down. Obviously, you'd go through it a lot faster than I am, but this is just an example of how we actually use the rotation. Judgment, Divine Toll, Hammer of the Righteous, spending that Holy Power again, using Judgment, using Hammer of the Righteous, etc. And then you start to see how the rotation sort of comes together. Now we've got 2 stacks of Holy Bulwark, we can use it, which takes us back to using Sacred Weapon. So you can then sort of see how that kind of works. The reason we want to use Holy Bulwark at 2 charges is because then we can then use our Holy Weapon, basically. And there you go. That is the single target rotation. So hopefully that made sense. We're now going to swap over into the Mythic Plus rotation. And I do want to say this is barely going to change. If we go into it, there we go. We're going into the Mythic Plus rotation. You can see only a few talents are changing here. One thing is we lose Hammer of the Righteous and we instead go for Blessed Hammer. But you're basically going to use that at the same place in your rotation as you did Hammer of the Righteous. You're just swapping one out for the other. It just throws the Blessed Hammer that spirals outward, dealing damage to enemies and reducing the damage they next deal to you. So it's better for multiple targets, basically. We also lose our Bastion of Light. And those are the only 2 sort of main changes that I would say. So I'm just going to go back into the single target build, just so I can show you what we're changing. So all you're really going to do is get your Avenger Shield and basically slot it in here. And then obviously the Hammer of the Righteous would change. And then you're just going to use Avenger Shield. That's literally the only difference we're making to the rotation for multiple targets. So now that we understand both of that, let's look through the important talents that underpin this build that we're looking at. If this starts to get overwhelming, don't worry. What I would like you to do is, if you are a true beginner, then just get really comfortable with the rotation I've shown you and don't worry about why you're pressing the buttons as much, and just get comfortable with pressing them and getting used to seeing them coming off cooldown and pressing them in the right order, etc. and priority. Once you're comfortable with that, then start looking through the talents and seeing how it all comes together. But I'm, of course, going to explain them to you now. So we have Grand Crusader here. When you avoid a melee attack or use Hammer of the Righteous, you actually have a chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Avenger's Shield. Every 3 Shields of the Righteous make your next Word of Glory cost no holy power. So if you see your Word of Glory light up with like a ribbon around it, in fact, let me show you. So every 3 uses of Shield of the Righteous here, you'll see your Word of Glory light up like this. That is going to be an instant heal that you can use, and it won't cost any holy power. So you can use it to heal yourself when you see that ribbon come up without having to worry about spending holy power. And that is from the Shining Light talent. Consecration's benefits persist for 4 seconds after you leave it, which is good to know, meaning you do have a little chance to get it back up after it comes off. When you use Avenger's Shield, your block chance is increased. Now, this is an interesting one, Righteous Protector. Holy Power abilities reduce the remaining cooldown on Avenging Wrath and Guardian of Ancient Kings. Guardian of Ancient Kings is a defensive, I'm going to speak about in a minute, but it's basically every time you use something like Shield of the Righteous, your cooldown on Avenging Wrath will be reduced. Spending Holy Power will also grant you a little bit of haste for 12 seconds, and that can stack up to 3 times. And then also Shield of the Righteous here increases your strength and stamina by 2% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. But I think I already mentioned that because it's on the tooltip. And then also there's the Gift of the Golden Valkyr. Each enemy hit by Avenger's Shield reduces the remaining cooldown of Guardian of Ancient Kings. When you drop below 30% health, you become infused with the Guardian of Ancient Kings for 4 seconds. So what is the Guardian of Ancient Kings? Because I've mentioned that a few times. Well, it's here. This is on a 5-minute cooldown, empowers you with the Spirit of Ancient Kings, reducing all damage you take by 50% for 8 seconds. And it's a really good defensive. Before we go on to other defensives, though, I just want to now take you through the hero talents. So, of course, we've got our Holy Armaments that we've spoken about. We also have the Rite of Sanctification here. Imbue your weapon with the power of light, increasing your armor and your primary stat by 2%. Now this lasts for an hour, so you do want to use this before you go into combat. We have Laying Down Arms. When an armament fades from you, the cooldown lay on hands is reduced, and you gain Shining Light. This is another defensive I'm going to explain. The effect of your active aura is increased by 33% on targets with your armaments, and this could be yourself. So what is an aura? Well, can you see these three down here? These are our Paladin auras. I would recommend that you have Devotion aura on at all times. This is actually going to reduce damage taken by 3%, not just for you, but your entire party. Casting a Holy Power ability increases damage and healing of your next Hammer of the Righteous, which is amazing. Now, this is a really interesting one. Solidarity. If you bestow an ornament upon an ally, you also gain its benefits. If you bestow an ornament upon yourself, a nearby ally also gains its benefits. So when you are using these, don't be like, should I be using it on someone else? Should I be using it on myself? It really doesn't matter. Either way, you and somebody else will both get the benefits. You could put it onto somebody else so that you can choose who it goes on to, rather than putting it on yourself and it will go onto someone else, randomly near you. But that's completely up to you. For ease of use, I would just say use it on yourself in that instance. And your spells and abilities actually have a chance to manifest a holy armament for a nearby ally as well, passively. And then we have the Blessing of the Forge. Avenging Wrath will also summon an additional sacred weapon, and during Avenging Wrath, your sacred weapon casts spells on your target and echoes the effects of your holy power abilities. So basically, you're going to be sort of duplicating the spells you're doing. So those are the hero talents. Lastly, I just want to take you through a few of the other utilities we have. Now, Paladin do have a lot. So again, if this is a bit overwhelming, just kind of, let's put this together bit by bit. We have blessings here, Blessing of Freedom, Blessing of Sacrifice. You can also talent into, you could come out of probably Judgment of Light and go into Blessing of Protection as well, depending on if you want to use that or not. Let's just go into it so I can show you what it is. But that's up to you. Blessing of Freedom, Protection, Sacrifice. So Blessing of Protection is a blessing and a curse. Quite literally. It literally makes people invulnerable, so they cannot be attacked, which is obviously really good for your allies. If you use it on yourself, though, it does mean that you will lose all threat and aggro against the mobs you're fighting, and they will go on attack somebody else, which as a tank isn't something we want. So don't use this on yourself, generally at least. We've then got Blessing of Freedom, Sacrifice. We've got our auras, which I've spoken about. There's Divine Shield, which grants you immunity to all damage, harmful effects, knockbacks, etc. Divine Steed, which is one of my favourites. Let's turn these action bars off now. And by the way, if you do want to get my UI, you can get all of this on my Patreon. I also offer a VIP channel in Discord to offer one-on-one support, including reviewing your logs and things like that. So Divine Steed literally gives you 100% movement speed in combat and indoors for a good few seconds, and you get 2 charges of it. This is a really good utility, as you can see. We've got Hammer of Justice, where you can stun your target. We've got Lay on Hands, which will actually heal somebody for 100% of your health. Not 100% of their health, 100% of your health. So if you've got more health than them, then it will of course do 100% of their health. But if you have less health than them, then it will do whatever's equal to your health. Rebuke is so important. This is your interrupt. This is how you interrupt the enemy's spellcasts, and especially in Mythic Plus, this is greatly beneficial. Your teammates will probably not like you very much if you're not interrupting spells, and if you are using it, they will love you. It's the biggest mistake that beginners make, and also veteran players make, is not interrupting as much as possible on your enemy spellcast. It can be literally a live or die situation with that, and it's very important to do. Apart from that, we have probably just Ardent Defender. Reduces damage you take by 20% for 8 seconds. And while it's active, the next attack that would otherwise kill you will instead bring you to 20% of your health. There is also Eye of Tyr on a 40-second cooldown, releasing a blinding flash from your shield, causing holy damage to all nearby enemies, and reducing all damage they deal to you, which is on a quite short cooldown, and you can use that as well. But that is pretty much it. So hopefully that was really useful for you guys. I do every spec. If you're new here, check out the playlist you now see on screen for that. and I do that every season. Please do click that subscribe button. It really helps support me as a creator. And like I said, if you would like to get my UI, any extra help from me, or just even support the channel, then check out Patreon in the description.